And as our network goes, all IP analysts say that service providers are losing nearly $14 billion a year in business as OTT providers continue to gain market share. But innovators in the communications service provider industry are taking aggressive steps to not only stay competitive, but to gain market share back from the OTT service providers. In our mobile studio at Mobile World Congress 2015 to tell us how to turn the ship is David Walsh. He's the Chief Executive Officer of Genband. They are a real-time communications software solutions provider. And David, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having us.
I want to talk about the Fring Alliance, and I want to start by finding out how or why you felt it was important to acquire Fring almost 18 months ago.
Well, it's no mystery to the whole industry that the over-the-tops have just taken off, and consumers are picking up these services and features and functionality, in all different kinds of ways they're being consumed. So it was a hot topic for us. We saw this thing happening and taking off, and we were looking at saying, well, how do we participate? And our customers are the carriers, so we're always looking for ways to help them. So we looked at the whole entire space and said, okay, what can we do to help them get into this space? Because they were sort of late to the dance. And we looked at the market, and there were obviously a few providers that had some traction. And we looked at the ones that had a large user base and serious feature functionality, because you got to have both. You got to have a user community. It's that old N squared, the value of a community is a function of how many users you have, and you got to have feature functionality. So when we looked at all the over-the-tops, there were only a handful that really met those two criteria, and Fring was one. So we looked at that as being a vehicle to bring on board so that we could offer that to the carriers so they could come up with alternative services to the over-the-tops that were gaining market share and traction.
Now, I know you had some primary objectives and goals for the Fring Alliance, really primary tenets of the Alliance. Can you give us some of those?
Well, it's really two things I just mentioned. Key to making an over-the-top work is having a large community. It's the network effect. And if you don't have the network effect, it's really hard to build a service offering around it. And what we found was that each carrier on their own was having a difficult time creating a community large enough to compete with the over-the-tops that already had the traction and already had the customers. The second piece was just the feature functionality, the services. So not just voice, but text and picture sharing and collaboration. All of that capability is required to be able to offer an attractive service to a consumer. It needs to be not just as good as the over-the-top, it needs to be better. So we gave some thought to that. And the carriers are in a very unique situation because they control the handset that you use. So they have signaling control to it, which the over-the-top providers don't have. So they also control your phone number, your personal identity. So when you combine identity and the control of the phone. So as an example, if you and I are talking on over-the-top, using an over-the-top service, and somebody were to call us, we get knocked off the call. So right away, that's not something that you and I could use for business, like having this conversation right now. If we were in a different place, we just couldn't do it over the top. But the carriers using our infrastructure, because they have knowledge and signaling, we can integrate that. So if a call were to come in, we could call wait it, we could send it to voicemail, we have options. So we're not just talking about building another over-the-top. We're talking about doing two things. Building the largest community in the world, bigger than any of the communities that the over-the-tops have, by federating the community. And two, delivering a superior service than what the over-the-tops have today. And those are the two goals of the Alliance.
Now, there's an interesting ownership ratio of the Alliance, 51% being for Genband and 49% for the service providers. What was the rationale behind that ratio?
Well, first we wanted the participants to have some equity stake. We found that if you have a stake in something, you have a vested interest in it, and you're going to get behind it. So the first thing was, okay, we need to have people to have some ownership in it. The second thing is, from a governance standpoint, we need to have somebody who can control and push things forward. Because if there's no one single entity that can decide on things to move forward with, then things don't happen very fast. And time is not our luxury. We have to move quickly. So we're balancing, we want our partners, the carriers, to have ownership in this, but we also want to be entrepreneurial and we want to be able to move quickly. So that was the balancing that we dealt with, and that's where we came up with the 5149. And the 49%, half of that you get as joining as a member. When you join, you get it. The other half is earned through participation. So carriers who actually are more aggressive in using and bringing more active users can actually earn more equity. And we thought that was an incentive because the network effect is really only going to happen if the carriers are active in pursuing it.
Let's talk about joining, by the way. How do you join the Alliance?
It's real simple. You pay a membership fee, which is a modest fee based on how many users you have, and then you join. Okay? And then after that, you pay a modest fee for active users. So it's really a pay for use model. So unless they're deriving benefit, they're not paying for it. And they market the services, they brand the services, they decide how to bundle it, they have the customer relationship. We're out of that. So the carriers can go ahead and brand it the way they want, they can sell it the way they want it, they can bundle it with their products and services. We're just the core infrastructure to make sure the basic feature functionality that's required to make this work is there, and that the large community is available to them.
Of course, service providers for the last number of years have been trying to provide more value for their customers and also stay competitive with these OTT providers. So I think GenVen's lending a big hand in that respect.
Well, that's the plan.
Thanks, David.
Okay. Thank you.
And for our continued coverage of Mobile World Congress 2015, you can go to our website at tianow.org. So long.